Connect all the wires in there in Facebook and make this live. Hang on. Let me make sure it's working before I start talking. Oh, give me just a second. Give me just a second. No notification yet, but that's pretty normal. That's pretty normal. Zuckerberg and sending out those notifications. It don't go so quickly, does it? Just uno, uno momento. Uno momento, por favor, mi amigo. Hang on. Hey, it's working. Good. Good. What's up, you guys? Matt Jablonski here with the Pointer Change. Come on in. Come on in and hang out with me for a little while. My name is Matt Jablonski. I'm a recovering meth addict. I used methamphetamine for 13 years. I've been in recovery since February 3rd, 2017. A little over 4 years of recovery from meth there. Today we're going to talk about we're not actually, well, we might go into the debate a little bit, but we're going to talk about the debate between whether addiction is a disease or a choice. And I'm going to talk about why I hate that debate. But I watched a video yesterday about it. But before I even start on my topic, totally off topic here, but you might not want my neighbors to the north, Canada, you guys might not want to hear this, but happy Canada Day. If you guys don't know what's going on up there, it's pretty terrible up there right now. They're finding a lot of unmarked children's graves around these schools that were. I actually had to look into this because I have quite a few followers here from Canada who come here to watch these videos. So I wanted to see what was going on because they've been mentioning this in the comments that they're finding more of these unmarked graves. So I did a little looking in this morning to see what's actually going on up there. And they're finding buried, unmarked graves of children, hundreds of them, around these schools that were set up when Canada originally became Canada. It was a school that was supposed to be the indigenous people of Canada were to send their children there to be reassimilated to society, to how Canada was going to be now. And instead, it ended up being a big mask, and they were just committing genocide, and they were killing off hundreds of children, thousands of children at these schools in Canada. So my heart goes out to Canada at this time. I know this, today's supposed to be Canada Day. You're supposed to be a day of celebration of your country, and a lot of people are muting that day. I can't even imagine what you guys are facing up there and what's going on. So, but my heart goes out to you, and I thank you guys for being here on the Pointer Change. Jessica, hey, Maddie and family, wish I could stay, but today is the day we say our final see you laters to my aunt. Our family could really use the prayers. I'll catch the rest of the video on the replay. Right on, Jessica. Well, my heart and my prayers go out to you as well, then. I'm sorry, that's definitely puts a damper on your day, but I hope you still have the best day you can. Luisha, good morning. Sabrina, 4 months clean here. Right on, Sabrina. Congratulations. There's a positive note for us, guys. Throw some hearts up for Sabrina hitting that 4 months clean. That is awesome. B. Clarker. This topic today, though. This topic today, though. I hate the debate. I know, I know. Tammy, good morning. Angie, good morning. Dana Moore, good to see you. Courtney Newman, good morning. Tammy, don't know why everybody has problems with the notifications, because I get notified every time right away. Right on, Tammy. Well, I'm happy you do. I myself, Zuckerberg gives me trouble. He gives me trouble with bringing up my notifications, but that's all right. That's all right. I rock with it. Oh, let's see. Deborah Ramirez. Good morning, Maddie and Recovery family. Much love and big hugs. Thank you for joining us, Deborah. Glad to have you here. Guys, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you click that like, love button. Share this video out. Somebody out there might want to hear this. We're going to go in a little bit onto the debate of whether addiction is a disease or a choice. We're going to debate it just a little bit, just a tiny bit, just to explore the idea of why people fight over this. Hey, B. Clark, thank you for the stars, brother. I appreciate that. But then, oh, Luisha could use some prayers. My father passed away yesterday, and today I make executive decisions as he had no will. I'm so lost and angry and confused. I am so sorry to hear that, Luisha. We're definitely keeping you in our prayers. Guys, throw up some care guys up there for Luisha. Let her know we're thinking about her and send up those prayers in the real world. I know that's a really hard time to go through after your parents pass away, and especially when the responsibilities fall on you to take care of some of their matters that were still going on here on in this physical world. So my prayers are definitely with you, Lou. That's for sure. Thank you for being here and sharing that with us, and I hope the prayers help. That's for sure. Pam, I get notifications. Right on. I'm glad you do. I sure don't. I don't even get notified for my own videos, guys. Don't even get notified for my own videos. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I do, but I usually get it while I'm sitting here live, or maybe even after the live is over, and I'm going back through the comments, and then I get notified. The Pointer Change is live, and I'm like, I know. I was. Thank you, Zuck, for that update. Sue Whitelock with all kinds of stars coming in. Thank you, Sue. I appreciate that. Tammy shared me out. Right on, Sue. I made it. Maddie Jablonski. Hi, guys. Hi, Sue. Good to see you this morning. So, as I said, today's topic is not necessarily going into the actual debate, but we're going to talk about the debate between addiction, whether addiction is a disease or a choice. Yesterday, I listened to a 2-hour lecture, a debate rather, on whether addiction is a brain disease or whether it's a choice. And this was not just a debate between two people that don't really know anything or two people in the rooms. I mean, this was actually extremely educated people that had very well thought out points and planned out and discussed this topic openly, whether or not disease was a choice or whether or not addiction is a disease or a choice. The two people that were debating were Dr. Mark Lewis, who is a neuroscientist, and Dr. Nassimi 8 Dodd. She is the director of the UVA, that's the University of West Virginia School of Law. She is the director of their Center for Addiction Research and Education. Dr. Mark Lewis, the neuroscientist, believes that addiction is not a disease, but that it is a behavior trait, or that it is learned character traits through a course of someone being an addict. He explained it in the sense that much in the same way that your brain becomes geared towards anything else when you go into something. For instance, if you really like sports cars and you really want to you become a gearhead, you learn everything about cars, your brain will develop differently than a person who is into, say, surfing. That person's brain will be, altered in the direction towards surfing. So you have these learned character traits. He raised some amazing points, and he actually made a lot of really good points in my mindset. He made a lot of good points towards the formation of habits and things like that. But he never actually, it just doesn't completely explain it. And when he was presented with some questions on people that don't grow up this way, because most of his argument was based towards people that grew up in an addictive family and an addicted family, or people that had been groomed and learned addiction over the course of years. Like myself, a meth addict for 13 years. You could say that a lot of my addiction was learned behavior, because I started out just being a normal kid, and then over the course of my addiction, I learned how to be better and better at being a meth addict, right? I learned more ways to do it. I learned more ways to find it. I was constantly focused on it. So I will say, yes, I'm sure some of the changes that took place in my brain during my active addiction were not actually the cause of the disease, but a lot of it was probably learned behavior, because there's a lot of choices involved in addiction, whether we believe that or not. I know a lot of people in the disease model do say that that most of it is just this disease, and that we have no control. We've lost the power of choice. That willpower is destroyed through our addiction. I don't believe in all of that. I do believe addiction is a disease, but I also believe we make a lot of choices in our addiction. Okay, like I made choices on how to do stuff, where to go, what to do, who to call. It wasn't completely out of my control. So I do believe that a lot of my addiction was learned behavior. The aspect where I find that addiction crosses that line from just a disorder, or not from a learned behavior into an actual disorder, is in the limbic reward center. We've talked about that before. The limbic reward center is the part of your brain that congratulates you for doing things that are going to guarantee your survival and continue the human species. Things like human interaction, sex, working, things like that are supposed to cause this reaction with our brains. Drugs and alcohol provide a way to have that same reaction without putting in the work. They cut out the middleman. You don't have to put much work in to get the same reward that you would from eating a good meal or having sex or having human interaction. You get that same reaction in your brain, and all you have to do is shoot it, snort it, smoke it, put it in your butt. Do it however you're going to do it, to each their own. Either way, however you're going to do the drugs, you do them, boom, you get the dopamine release. You get the same reaction you would from hours of work or hours of sex or whatever else that you would have to put in to reach that same dopamine drop. So, in that sense, drugs really rewire the entire brain. Now, this argument going back and forth between whether it's a disease or a learned behavior, the problem with it is that if we consider it a learned behavior, if we consider this a behavioral problem, most of the weight of the addiction crisis is put on the judicial system because it's considered that your character flaws and you're just a bad person and you learn to do bad things and you should be punished is what the mindset becomes. When we take it out of that realm and put it into the realm of being a disease, then it gets rightfully placed on the medical system where it should be treated as a medical problem. And that's where I completely stand behind that it is an actual disease and not just a behavioral problem. If we look at the definition of a disease, the definition of a disease is a disorder of structure or function within a living organism that causes specific signs and symptoms, right? When we look at addiction, you definitely have a disorder of function, right? I don't think anybody would argue that there's definitely functioning problems with addicts. We, can't hold a job, we don't talk to our families, we steal, we lie, we manipulate. You're definitely not functioning properly. So we have a disruption of function. The disruption of disorder of structure, however, we have to look deeper for that. If you actually cut open the brain of an addict versus the brain of a non-addict, you would see that in our limbic reward center, an addict has grown more receptors on the receptor beds in their brain. Because of the influx of dopamine that comes in, your brain begins to grow more receptors on the receptor beds. That is not something that you chose to happen. You chose to do the drugs, you chose to do the things like that, and I understand there is a grooming process that makes all of this become our normality, like stealing and lying and manipulating and lying to your family and all of that stuff becomes a normal for us. I understand that there is definitely some learned behavior behind this. But you did not say, I really wish I had more receptors on the receptor beds in my brain and grow more receptors. That was not a choice. And that is a disorder of structure right there. The brain has actually changed shapes. The human brain has developed a new receptors on the receptor beds in your brain. Now, excuse me. Now, the way the man that was opposing this view described this, and he was right on a lot of things, and that's why I agree that a lot of it is learned behavior, is when you're first born, when you're a child, your brain's we think of it as like a blank slate. And a lot of times when we think about the development stages of the brain and the brain developing in those early years, you think of things adding, growing. You're growing more neurons, you're growing more synapses, you're growing more channels in your brain. But actually, you're losing. Believe it or not, when you're first born, your brain is just kind of a cloudy, murky set of neurons and synapses, and they are firing in all kinds of different directions. It's an unorganized cluster, right? And then slowly, as you develop, as you learn, the neurons and synapses that fire in certain orders, kind of like the development of a city, right? If you're developing a small town, like the roads start out as cattle trails and beaten walking paths, people are walking this way, walking that way. But as more people walk on certain paths, those paths become greater, and then eventually they become roads. And then those small roads that get more traffic, those end up being highways, things like that. Same thing you could think about happening in your brain is that the neurons that aren't being used and aren't being developed just slowly kind of sit in the background, and then it develops channels. Your brain kind of develops these pathways and develops your habits and your, the things you like and the things you don't like start to develop out of that process. So it's actually more of a falling away than it is a building in the brain. Um, so his idea was that through years of learning, because for instance, a lot of us were in active addiction for 10, 20 years. We're talking decades of drug use. In decades of drug use, there is definitely a lot of learned behavior that happens. Your brain changes shape in a lot of ways just because of the things you're doing and the actions that you're creating that are creating these reactions within your brain, right? But the problem that he didn't address is, like I said, the growing. The growing, because that's not a normal process of learning. You don't grow more receptors on your receptor beds. The other ones fall away from the things you don't like, but you don't grow more in the areas where it does like. So that to me seemed like an area that he missed, and there were a lot of questions that came up towards, especially towards people that didn't go through that lifestyle. Like I said, in my case, I definitely got into light drugs and then I liked it, so I went towards that and I followed it and I started working my way up the criminal ladder and I started working my way up the drug ladder and I developed a lot of things, through my own doing. But he doesn't touch on people that didn't come into addiction that way. People that were prescribed an opiate painkiller for a relatively short amount of time, and then all of a sudden they became addicted to the drugs, and then suddenly they were having they were having the symptoms of seeking, they're having all of the same symptoms that somebody in like who lived my life, who learned all those behaviors over the course of a criminal history, those people that didn't live that way are now showing the same signs and symptoms that I am. Now, to me, that points directly towards a disease, and I really think that we really do need to think of it as a disease. For one, like I said, because then the addiction problem falls squarely on the medical field, which is where it belongs, with people with mental illnesses and people with disorders like that. And then we can stop thinking of these people as flawed and as they're just bad people, and start to realize that these are people with an actual mental illness. These are people with an actual brain problem. These are people with actual developmental problems. These are people with actual brain damage, and they need to be treated as such. Caitlin!
Mia!
How are you?
I'm good. I'm headed to work.
Okay, I love you.
I love you. Just cut my armpit.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
She cut her pit shaving. Oh, ow.
I put deodorant on it and I didn't know it was cut yet.
Oh, man. Oh, that's a hell of a way to find out you cut yourself. Damn, rub some deodorant in it.
Yeah, I love you.
I love you. Okay. So back to what we were talking about. As I said, if we think of it as a developmental problem or a behavior problem, then it becomes more of these people need to be punished so they can learn better things. And if we look at it as a disease, if we look at it as a medical problem, then these people are going to be given treatment and they're going to be given the right things. Now, I will say that Dr. Mark Lewis, one of the points that he made was that no matter whether it's a disease or a choice, that it should still be addressed, that it is still a problem that we need to look into. And just because something's not a disease doesn't mean it's not a problem, and it doesn't mean we can't focus on it. I get that mindset. And here's why I hate this argument. Okay, I'll give you the lowdown on why I rarely talk about this. I see a lot of other people address this pretty regularly. I don't really talk about it. I kind of fluff it off, especially when people ask me, do you think addiction is a disease or a choice? I tell them I don't want to talk about it. For one, because you can look at the facts of addiction and you can make your own, you can draw either conclusion. And when I watched this debate between these two very educated people, they had amazing facts, they had amazing arguments, and a lot of what they each laid out was exactly the same evidence. They just presented it and described it in a different way. So the debate of whether or not addiction is a disease or a choice is simply an argument of semantics and an argument of wording, and it gets us nowhere. It helps nobody. It solves nothing to sit here and waste our breath and waste our time to discuss whether or not it's a disease or a choice. Either way, people are dying and we need to start finding ways to help them. And I am very happy to say that I've seen so many laws changing. I've seen so much forward movement in the addiction and recovery movement. I've seen so many people are putting action in behind this, especially lately. Seems like the country's really focusing on the addiction crisis that's happening. COVID kind of put us on the back burner a little bit, but I mean, in the United States alone, we have like 70,000 people dying every single year from drug addicted causes. So that's more people dying in 1 year than we lost in the entire Vietnam War. Over, what was that, like a 15-year war? And less people died in Vietnam than die in a single year from addiction. So either way you look at it, disease, choice, doesn't matter. Honestly, doesn't matter. All I know is these people really need help. All of us, even me. I can't just say these people like it's someone else. This is me too. I'm an addict, and I will be my whole life if you ask me. Recovering, recovered, all of these different terms that we get into these little arguments over semantics. Clean, sober, all these tiny little. We get so sidetracked. We all get so sidetracked when we start to argue over the wording of this issue and don't actually focus on the answers to the problem that is in front of us. Start focusing on the solution, stop focusing on the problem, stop arguing over what we're going to call it, and let's just get some shit done. But like I said, if we can all just get on the track of saying, hey, it is a disease, that'd be great, because then it can fall on the medical thing. But even if you do think it's a choice, I still say we need to take care of it medically. It needs to be, these people need treatment. They don't need punishment. I seen a news share not that long ago it was kind of a joke. It was kind of laughed about. I don't know if it was meant to be a joke or if it was just laughed about, but it was a man in, I don't know, remember what state he was in, but he called the police because he believed that the meth he just bought wasn't actually meth, and he wanted to press charges against his drug dealer. He wanted them to come over and test his meth, and then he wanted to press charges against his drug dealer for selling him something that wasn't what it was supposed to be. A lot of people were laughing at it. It kind of invokes laughter just because it's kind of like, how silly is that? What a dumbass. But honestly, he came down to according to this post, the man came down to the police station and they tested his drugs and then gave him a felony charge of possession of methamphetamine, and he's now in jail. So here we have a clear-cut case of a man who was obviously had a screw loose. Whether you want to think he's a dumbass or what, probably a normal guy just was having a problem. Obviously, if somebody is at that level to where they're calling the police to report bad drugs being sold to them, we have a person who is not right in the head, and then we take him and we give him a felony conviction of possession of methamphetamine, making it harder for him to get a job, giving him this conviction, making it harder for people to trust him, just take away a whole bunch of his freedoms over somebody that really could have been helped. And he was actually, had this been taken the other way, this man could have came in and been offered treatment and been taken somewhere and got the help that he needs. Instead, they threw him into a cell with a bunch of other people who are living the same way he is, and they're going to feed into his bullshit and probably come out of that cell even worse. I can't say definitely because, like myself, I got thrown in a cell for 97 days with a bunch of people who were just as bad as me, and I came out and decided I needed to move away and start a new life. So you never know how it's going to affect somebody, but still, the convictions that we put on these people, and myself included, I'm a felon. We're held back for the rest of our life because of a conviction over something that was a medical problem or a problem with our head. Addiction is a very, very complicated disease. It's not like a diseased lung, which the only purpose of the lung is to breathe oxygen. That is its only purpose. Or a diseased, some other organ. We're talking about a disease that is in the most complicated organism on the face of the planet, and it has a defect in it. You have no idea the the ways that addiction alters the human mind, the way that addiction affects the human mind and changes. I mean, it affects almost every single area of the brain. That is different than any other brain disease that's out there that affect different areas of the brain. Addiction affects your memory. It affects your prefrontal cortex, which is your decision making. It affects your hippocampus, which, well, I already mentioned that one, the memories. I mean, it affects every single area of the brain, and then makes you run on your midbrain, which is completely insane, that you're just running around on fight or flight instinct for freaking years in some cases. But all of it, it's very hard to understand, and we're not even that smart with the human brain to begin with. Like, all the scientists and all the freaking amazing intelligent people that are out there, and we're still not very good at what goes on up here. We can't figure it out very well. So then when you take that brain that we don't even understand to begin with, and then you put a dysfunction in it, that makes it run improperly and affects the decision making skills and affects all these other problems and affects your connections with other humans. It affects so many other areas that it makes it even more complicated to understand. So so bottom line is, it doesn't really matter if it's a disease or a choice. It's a horrible problem that's happening in our country and in our world, and it needs to be addressed either way. So I just kind of steer clear of this argument. But yesterday I was working and I had my headphones in and I was weed whacking at the park, and I decided to listen to some lectures on addiction, and this one just happened to start. So I listened to a 2-hour lecture on whether a disease whether addiction was a disease or a choice. And the conclusion I came to at the end was, wow, talk about 2 hours of people arguing over the wording. That's all it was them going back and forth on how, she was like, well, then after you have, a person who's uses this substance for so long, then you have the formation of the disease addiction. And he's like, no, then you have the formation of chemical dependence. And I was like, what are we doing here? What are we arguing about? We're arguing about how you worded it. Well, either way you worded it, it's still a problem, and this person is still this person could still possibly die. There's way more important things we can talk about. All right, I'm going to get into some comments here. Let me scroll back up. We got a lot of comments coming in. Thank you guys so much for sharing your experience and thoughts on this topic. Let's get way up there. Way up there. There we are. B. Clark. My thoughts on this topic that makes it so misunderstood. Not everyone addicted is an addict. That makes it hard for those with the disease that struggle so hard to get clean when some people can just put it down when they want. Oh yeah, there is a difference, and that's another thing I was going to point out. So thank you, B. Clark, for this comment. There is a difference between a heavy drug user, even a heavy habitual drug user, is not the same as a person who is addicted to drugs. There is actually a difference between those two things. Now, where do we draw the line? It's very hard to tell. It's very hard to tell, especially if they're using drugs of abuse or drugs or extremely addictive drugs like methamphetamine and heroin, especially. If they're using those drugs, even a non addict who uses meth or uses heroin will start to show the signs and symptoms of an addict. You know what I'm saying? They'll start to lie, they'll start to steal, they'll start to manipulate, and they start to show the same signs and symptoms. But then when you take the drug use away, those signs and symptoms seem to fade away. But the same thing happens to an addict as well. But the problem is where we have people who you take it away and they're just fine, and then people that you take it away and they feel like they're dying. Because in my thoughts on this is, the line gets crossed. I can't tell you physically when, to say, hey, when this happens, that's when the line has been crossed. I can't tell you when it's been crossed. But what I can tell you is that there seems to be a difference between, you show a non-addict, cocaine or meth or something like that, show them a picture or a pile of it or whatever. To them, it's just kind of, hey, what is this? Oh, that's cocaine, or that's meth. That's that thing that I do every once in a while on the weekends. That's that thing to do at a party with my buddies. That's that thing. When we show that same pile to an actual addict, they start to sweat. They can taste it. They instantly have memories of, using it all the different times, and they have shame, they have regrets, they have all of this shit hits them at the same time, and we call that being triggered. But that is a thing that only happens to addicts. You can show cocaine to non-addicts all day long, and they might go, hey, I want some of that, or ha ha ha, that's that stuff from Saturday night. But they don't start sweating, have extreme urges that follow them for the next 12 to 24 hours to frickin' months later, can still be thinking about that. We don't have the same look at it. Now if you ask me, it's because on an evolutionary level, drugs have become, in this person's brain, drugs have become something that is going to guarantee their survival or continue the human species. Because the things that cause that reaction in your brain, the things that cause that dopamine release in your brain, are things that guarantee your survival and continuation of the human species. Things like sex, eating food, drinking water, basic human interaction. Those things are up on a certain level in your brain, right? Like for instance, there's this line. All below this is monster trucks and television and stuff like that, right? Above this line is things that are going to guarantee your survival. Drugs, for most people, is down here. It's just one of those things down here. It's like TV, monster trucks, surfing, whatever. It's just kind of down one of those cool things to do. For an actual addict, at some point, Drugs breaks that barrier and gets listed in your brain as something that's going to guarantee your survival and continue the human species. So when you no longer have it, the brain reacts as if you are starving to death, as if you are or not drowning, but as if you are, going into dehydration. The body starts to send out those same panic signals like, we're going to die. We need the thing. We need the drug, because you somehow, at some point, the drug has crossed that barrier into something that you need to survive. So that's something that I believe. That's my personal thoughts on when we actually become an addict, is when that line is crossed. When is that line crossed? I have no idea. You have to ask a lot smarter people than me. Deborah Ramirez, I haven't been getting notified. Well, poopy. That's a bunch of poop. Go to my page. Make sure that you're still clicked on following. Sometimes Zuckerberg messes that up. So make sure you're still following this page. Make sure you click it and it'll say you can set it to see first or see all, something like that. If you touch the video right now, you can click the bell. If you haven't clicked the bell, click the bell and then set your notifications so you get all live notifications, and that'll remind you in the future when I go live. Pam, Stephanie Titus did a live this morning and is home now and resting and doing well. Right on, Pam. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so happy to hear she's doing good. I seen her video this morning already. Josh, your family wasn't addicted to any drugs though, right, Maddie? There is somewhat of a drug addiction. Not really. My family did drugs. Yeah. I don't know necessarily if there was addiction in my bloodlines, because my parents are from a time when you didn't talk about that stuff. Me and you and all these people, we're sitting here all the time like, yep, I did meth and I did heroin and I did crack, and one time I lived in a dumpster for a week, but our parents come from that generation where you rubbed some dirt on it and you kept going. You didn't talk about it. You don't talk about the addicts in your family. You don't talk about your own addictions. You don't talk about your problems. So I don't know the extent of the drug use in my family, but my mom was, if they did anything, they never did it in front of me. I don't come from like a drug-filled home or anything like that. I often say I lived in Mayberry. We had the same house until I was 17 years old. There was always food there. I never seen drugs until the DARE program came around and showed me what drugs looked like. Other than that, I had never even seen drugs. So it's different. Let's see, B. Clark, but how does that apply? Twin boys grow up with an alcoholic dad. One grows up to be his dad and becomes an alcoholic because of his environment. The other grows up to never drink in his life because his dad was an alcoholic and didn't want that same environment. Excellent point. Excellent point that the environment it matters to a degree. Honestly, one thing that I find interesting is that addiction is one of the most how could you say this, where it gets passed on generation to generation. I can't think of the word. But 50% of whether or not you're going to become an addict or alcoholic is decided by your genetics. Like, that's huge. That's a huge number. 50% of the decision being made already, whether or not your parents were addicted. Like, that's one of the most. What am I thinking? What's the word I'm thinking of? I can't think of the word. But like that's high. That's a higher rate of being passed down than, say, cancer. You know what I mean? Like, there's a higher probability of you having like addiction than any other illness. Let's see. And I like that point that you made there, because that really, like he said, the way you grow up really develops those pathways in your brain. And you explained right there that it could, it could develop a pathway this way, but it could develop a pathway that way as well. Tammy, it harms the frontal part of the brain, which affects our decision making. It does create a chemical imbalance. And a lot of us were living with a chemical imbalance before we did the drugs. So a lot of us had, it was almost inevitable for us to look for something to fill that hole. And yeah, it shuts down the frontal cortex, making your decision making all goes back to the midbrain, to the um, midbrain. I can't think of the actual word for your midbrain right now, but that takes over in the decision process, the fight or flight instinct, and that's making your decisions for you rather than letting the frontal cortex make the rational minded decision. Sue Whitelock, I say it's a choice then. After the first one, you are fucked, I guess. I don't know, but I'm learning as I go. But I pray for all addicts. Don't want anyone to make that first choice run their life forever and ruin their life forever and break everyone that loves them. Amen, Sue. Amen. I mean, I totally agree. It's definitely a choice that leads to a problem down the road. Hey, let me catch up on some of these stars. We got all kinds of them. Wow. Sue Whitelock threw all kinds of stars up. Luisha threw in 200. Windy, Cindy, Bo, Bindi gave us 200. Thank you so much. Wow, another 200 from Windy, Cindy, Bo, Bindi. So that's 400 stars. Thank you so much, Windy, Cindy. And then a 500 from Windy. Holy crap. Thank you so much, Windy, Cindy, Bo Bindi. I love you. Let's see. I'm loving this Misfits community. I love and appreciate y'all so much. Keep it up, Maddie and Misfits. I'm proud of each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. And Ambrose with 130 stars. Right on. And then Sue coming back in with those 50 bombers. Thank you so much. I appreciate it all, guys. It's all going to go towards developing this stream even more. We're going to keep on moving up. Keep on moving up. I got this new setup now with the up and down screen. I'm in your face. Got the little stars and the things that come up here. We're upgrading. We're upgrading as we go, right? Just keep upgrading. I'm so happy that I figured this out. You guys have no idea how happy I am to be on a vertical screen setup again. Like it's the little things. It's the little things, especially when I upgraded to this new program and I knew and it had to be widescreen then. Like I thought it had to be widescreen. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna have to settle. I'm just gonna have to learn to do these sideways videos and be okay with it being sideways. And I just kind of settled with it and tried to make it work. But the whole time I don't know what it is about being on that sideways camera that I feel like it's totally impersonal. Like this feels a lot more personal to me. It feels a lot more like there's a connection here. You know what I'm saying? Like when I'm sideways on the top of your screen with the comments down below, it's just different. I don't know how to say it, but it's just different. So actually putting in the work and finding out how to do this and setting it up this way so I could still use my cool new program, but be an up and down camera. It took a lot of thinking, it took a lot of doing, but we got it done, and I'm so happy to have it this way. Let's see, Josh, I might lose signal when I go inside the store, but I will get back on when I come out. Right on, Josh. Heather, do the receptors grow in everyone's brains that do drugs and alcohol, or just addicts' brains? As far as I know, it is just an addict's brain that develops those extra receptors. If you were to cut open a non-addict's brain, someone who's just a casual drug user, their brain would still have those, would not have as many receptors on the receptor beds. That's that's a huge reason why we develop a tolerance towards the drugs that we're using, is because we have more receptors growing, so you have more mouths to feed, because receptors in the receptor beds are just tiny little mouths that gobble up the neurotransmitters that come down, like dopamine and serotonin and such like that. And we grow a whole bunch more of those, so then there's more mouths to feed, so then it takes more drugs to cause the same reaction. So that's why your tolerance develops. And then when you come into recovery, a lot of those little mouths will recess, and you'll go back to a normal amount of receptors, or a relative normal amount of receptors. But that's why we have the numb feeling as well. That's why when you come into recovery and nothing brings you that same enjoyment as drugs did before, like nothing seems to make you happy, it just seems you're walking around in this numb cloud, is because the amount of dopamine released by making your bed and going to work and getting a legitimate paycheck and the normal mundane life that we all live in recovery, those little things are nowhere near the dopamine release that you get from meth or heroin or cocaine. I hate to just call a spade here, but I hate to tell you, that's why. It's because when you have been, like, you're doing meth and heroin, your receptors are just gobbling like crazy and your neurons are firing like crazy and everything is just flowing insane up here. And then you take that away and go down to, like, when you're doing normal things around the house, you get the dishes done. Here's a little dopamine. Oh, you made your bed? Here's a little dopamine. It makes it just like, wow. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the intense level of happiness, or, the over enjoyment of drugs of abuse that cause us to just feel numb in our recovery. But it does get better, guys. I can promise you that. As a guy who did meth for 13 years, I thought I was never going to feel happy again. And I definitely feel happy. I'm very thankful for my life today. Let's see, Heather, I believe it's a disease if there are changes going on in the brain, right? Right? I mean, the brain does develop and change on a normal rate through a normal life. If you never used drugs or if you never became an addict, your brain is still going to change and develop over the course of your life, but it's not going to grow more receptors. It's not going to do the huge changes that we see happening in a person's brain when they go from a non-addict to an addict. You're not going to have that huge jump. Belinda, I grew up around my entire family that was either alcoholic or on drugs. I was abused in most ways you can imagine, and I had to take care of my sister and brother. I was a kid and learned how to hustle early. By age 13, I've been selling dope and doing cocaine here and there till it became the norm to me. Later, I liked acid and mushrooms, and then I found meth, which was way different back then, and then painkillers. That's what really caught me on multiple times, and I have 5 years, almost six in August, and hopefully for the rest of my life, I will never go back, one day at a time. Right on, Belinda. Thank you for sharing that bit of your story with us. That's a beautiful testimony you laid on us. I like that. And yeah, you're again one of those people that I would say we definitely have a lot of learned behavior in our addiction that we have to unlearn a lot of the stuff that we learned. We definitely created some pathways in our brain towards drugs and towards addiction, towards crime and all that. But that's not to say that we didn't develop an actual disease. Windy Cindy Bobindi, I'm loving this Misfits community. Oh, I already read that one. Thank you so much, Windy Cindy. B. Clark, honestly, I think wording can have a lot to do with it. Speak life, not hate. Positive perception and positive wording helps others and oneself. Amen, brother. Amen. B. Clark, but what if that event gets him clean for the rest of his life and he is able to share hope with others and help them get clean? I got clean in jail. Right on, B. Right on. I'm right there with you. Pam, when I was admitted to the hospital in July of 2013 for the abscess on my upper left arm, they did emergency surgery on 4:30 a.m. I honestly believe they medically detoxed me from heroin as I was blessed to have not to ever have any withdrawals. Right on. Right on. That's crazy. That's awesome, though. That is definitely cool. Shayna, good morning, Maddie and family. Hope everyone is having a great day. So far, so good. Windy Cindy, I set an alarm for 10 every day. That's my reminder. Ah, right on. Right on. Dana, I am the only one in my family who went to the dark side. I thank God every day. I don't want to see anyone that I love go through what I went through. Right on, Dana. That's amen. Amen. I am so thankful. I mean, my brothers definitely used a lot of drugs back in the day, and they had their struggles with addiction as well. But none of them took it to the levels I did, and I'm very thankful for that. I'm also very thankful that my brother Troy was in active addiction with me for a long time there. We were using drugs and running and gunning together, and I'm thankful I had him there. That's a weird thing to say, but I'm thankful that through that time in my life that my entire family didn't it wasn't my entire family that disowned me, right? My dad still, of course, my dad wasn't an addict, but my dad just, I wish he had disowned me because I lived under his roof and manipulated him, and I wish he had just kicked me out. I wish he had cut me off because then I wouldn't have all these memories of ripping my dad off. I would just have memories of my dad not liking me and me not going there. You know what I mean? But instead, I got memories of manipulating for years. So that's a little tip to anybody out there that is enabling an addict and giving them a place to live, anything like that. Just kick them out. I know you might be like, oh, they're gonna hate me forever if I kick them out. Well, they're gonna hate you and they're gonna be pissed. They're not gonna like it. That's for damn sure. You're cutting them off on a great way for them to still be able to get high and have a roof over their head. But they'll thank you for it when they come into recovery. They will thank you for it later that you cut them off. Because honestly, like my mom, she never gave me a dime, never let me stay at her house, and I'm very thankful that she didn't, because then I would have memories of those times I ripped off my mom and those times I stayed at her house when I was high and all these. But I don't have any memories of doing terrible things to my mom because she didn't allow me to come around with my bullshit. So that's a good tip for any parent out there. And I regret that my dad enabled me. I really do. Um, but having my older brother be in the addiction with me in ways was good for me because it meant, that I still had a family member that I confided in because I wouldn't tell nothing to my non-addict family. I would not tell them a damn thing about where I was, what I was doing, like how long I was gone. None of that I would talk to them about. But when my brother Troy and I would talk, I usually was down to earth with him and let him know exactly what I was up to. And I think a lot of that was helpful for me. Let's see. Sue, that's my worry about my granddaughter right there, that 50%. You know, we can't focus too much on it. All we can do is focus on hoping that they make the right choices and trying to guide them the right way, you know, and letting them know that they are predisposed to being an addict. Brandy, my parents were alcoholics and had a medical scare that got them clean, so they are in recovery and went to church, but they don't really discuss their past too much. Yeah, that's that age, you know, or that generation. B. Clark, just remember to wear pants when you're on the vertical setup. What? You guys, you know, I don't want to wear pants. Don't worry about what I'm wearing. You don't worry about what I'm wearing. Windy, Cindy, Bo Bindi. Oh my gosh, Maddie, this is so off topic. I never received my bracelet. Oh, I still haven't sent it out. Thank you for reminding me. It's still sitting on the stairs. I'll write it down right now. Wendy, Cindy bracelet, and I'll take care of that on Friday. Thank you. I needed that kick in the butt. Let's see. Sue, shit, Maddie's supposed to be country. County, not country. Oh, I must have missed that comment or something. Dana Moore, I am trying to get out of the numb cloud. Oh, it can take forever, and it takes a lot of work. For me, it takes a lot of continuous work, and it's real easy for my brain to slip back into that numbness and be like, but we have to remember that, you know, there's so many joys in recovery. There really is. It may not reach that same peaks. It's not gonna, as my best friend told me in early recovery, it's not meth. It's not gonna give you that rush. But it is definitely good to be in recovery. And it was good for, you know, you might think that was kind of, I don't know, I guess looking back on it, because I was in my early recovery chasing feelings yet still. And I had a day, I think I drank like 2 monsters and I was going to have another monster. And Ryan was like, Matt, it's not meth. It's not going to do that for you. And I was like, wow, like, thank you for telling me that. Because I didn't even realize that that's exactly what I was doing, was trying to chase a feeling. I was trying to, you know, follow that feeling of woo. So I'm very thankful to have the friends that call me out of my bullshit that I do. Brandy, today I am celebrating with 1330 days freed up. Only because God allows it. Right on, Brandy. 1,330 days. That is awesome. Windy Cindy, maybe if your dad had not enabled you, you wouldn't have wound up in jail and you wouldn't be where you are now. A mixed blessing. Honestly, I think if my dad hadn't enabled me, you know, we can't even think about that. And we think about those what ifs. There's no reason to think about what ifs. What happened happened and can't happen any other way because we're still here, right? So I'm not going to worry about it too much. But if my dad wouldn't have enabled me, I probably just call a spade a spade. I would have ended up in jail a lot sooner and I might have ended up getting clean sooner. I'll just say that. So yeah, that's a huge lesson to any parents out there. Don't, you know, that to me, that sounds like a way to enable somebody to enable somebody. Saying, well, you know, maybe if he hadn't, bad things would happen. You know, no, it would have been better. I guarantee. Don't enable your addicts. Don't enable them. Let's see. Windy Cindy Bobini wrecked that. My dad, my boy grandson is dabbling in drugs. I am doing everything in my power to prevent that, to help stop it before it starts to heavily. He promised me he would never do that after his mom died from heroin overdose. Now I'm scared. Wake County Humane Society, Human Services, I don't have much space in and did not help us much at all. He keeps running away and I keep bringing it back. I will never ever give up on him. I will never let him throw me away. I will not enable him either. Right on. Right on. I can appreciate all that. And I know honestly getting a hold of I don't know what people think human services and stuff are going to do or what we expect them to do when we reach out to those kind of people and tell them that somebody in our family is suffering with an addiction and they need help. Um, if a person doesn't want to participate in their own rescue, it's really hard to help them. I know we seem to think like, well, I called the human services and they, you know, they weren't helping me. and I hear that a lot, and that's, it's unfortunate that they don't really have much they can do. If the person doesn't want to come in and doesn't want to go to rehab, and then even if they do go to rehab, if they're not in the right mindset yet, it's not gonna work, and even saying that sounds wrong to me because it's not a matter of rehab working. I've had people tell me that. I went to rehab and it didn't work. And it's like, what did you expect? What do you mean it didn't work? Like they don't cast a magic spell on you when you go to rehab. It's not like you go in there and they go, "You are now in recovery. You do not want to do drugs anymore." And then you leave like, "Wow, I don't want to do it worked, everybody." Like it's not a matter of it working. It's a matter of you working it. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Sue, my old man keeps say, where did he go wrong with raising? Where did he go wrong with raising our son? It's, there's so much more to it than that. There really is so much more than just where did you go wrong? Oh wow, I'm so far behind in the comments. I'm gonna scroll all the way down. What's up, Amber Doobie? How you doing? How is the new son there? How's motherhood treating you? Let's see. Windy, Cindy, Bobini, maybe. Oh, I already read that one. Pam, dry drunks. Dry drunk is a terrible problem. Let's see. Are you going to be selling the bracelets? Caitlin and I just kind of decided to hand them out when we go to speaking events. Is the conclusion we've come to on the bracelets? We're not going to be selling them. We're just going to be, if you come to one of the events where I'm speaking, or if I do my own speaking engagement or something like that, then you'll be able to get them. I will be sending some out to. I might send some out to people that want to give them out or something like that. But even that. Dude, it is super stupid expensive to mail a bracelet. That's the problem that we ran into. It cost over $300 for us to send out those bracelets to my supporters. We sent bracelets out to everybody that's a supporter on Patreon. All except Windy, Cindy, Bobindy's never got sent out. But we sent out those to everybody that signed up, and it cost us over $300 to send them out. It's over $4 a piece to ship a rubber bracelet. So it became a battle in myself of, do I really want to sell people a freaking rubber bracelet for $7 so that I can make any money back on it, and then we just decided, no, you know what, we're just going to use these for advertising purposes, just to hand them out. That's what we decided to. So if you come see me speak wherever I'm at, you will get a bracelet. Come track me down. Windy, Cindy, Bobindi, I am working it so hard, guys. My kiddo thinks he's infallible, as we all have at some point. We all know the story now. I'm trying to save him before it's too late. Amen, Windy, Cindy. Amen. You keep trying. Let's see. Pam, life's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Aw, that's cute. B. Clark, well, I want a bracelet, so come to Bama to speak, because I can't leave the state. You thought it was expensive to mail out those bracelets before. Drive to Alabama and bring me one. Let's see, Brandy. Yeah, to me it was way more than $4 too. Thank you so much, Maddie. Yeah, it definitely was to ship that up to Canada. Holy crap. I'm surprised it even went. I'm surprised they even allowed it in. They weren't just like, no, that's probably covered with the coronavirus, eh? Probably covered. But yeah, I did some looking this morning, Brandy, into what's going on up there in Canada because it's Canada Day today. By the way, to all my Canadian friends, I know you guys, I know it's kind of muted and it's kind of I don't know if you want to hear it right now, honestly, but Happy Canada Day. I don't know if you probably are like, I don't care. I don't want to hear about Happy Canada. There's a lot going on up in Canada. If you guys didn't know, our neighbors to the north are going through some terrible stuff up there. So, my heart goes out to you guys for sure. I had to do some Googling this morning and see exactly what everybody was talking about here in the comments with all these children's graves being found. Michael McNeil and Brandy had said stuff about that the past couple days, been saying that that all these children's graves have been found. And yeah, it's pretty insane what's going on up there. Let's see, Brandy, I am not happy with Canada right now. Understandable. Understandable, straight up. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here today. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I love you guys so much. I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. right